Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bikini and the Brain with the lovely.
Hi, that's me. I'm Ashley. I'm the lovely, but also known as Ashley, aka Ashley K. Fit, Ashley Kaltwasser.
We're just going to call her the lovely.
The lovely.
So,
yes. Merry Christmas, by the way.
Merry Christmas.
If you are listening to this a few days later, this is filmed on Christmas. So we wanted to give you.
We're posting it today.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to give them a really good Christmas present. So why not, give them a good podcast on Christmas.
Yeah, so we are, and that's nice that we're close to each other now, that we can just do this on a whim, So today is Christmas, but it is also 6 days past the Olympia.
Ooh, you're right.
Yeah, which is crazy. So this episode.
Wait. It would be, it's Saturday, right?
Today? Oh, today's?
No, it's 1 week.
Today's Friday.
Oh, it is?
Today's
really?
Friday. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we posted.
Well, almost a week. Almost a week to sit and think and look and decide and,
Yeah, and we're going to basically go over the Olympia recap. We'll talk about the show itself, the other competitors there, the placings there, how Ashley felt, all that good stuff, and kind of what to look for in 2021 with the season and how the Olympia affected things. The Olympia is always kind of like the standard for what's going to happen the next entire season. So every coach, every athlete should be watching the Olympia, looking at what they're picking, looking at what's new, what they're going with, and because that's going to be pretty much the go-to for the remainder of the year. Now it's a full year of the competition season. So what do you need to be bringing differently? What does Ashley need to be doing for next year? A whole bunch of stuff this time. So I think first off, we go into the Olympia day.
Olympia. So, I would say, I don't think I looked my best at this particular show. And I always say to you guys, placings, I don't like to focus so much on placings, but more so how I improved or how I looked. Personally, I don't think that the Olympia was my best look. But with that being said, I think I did make improvements in some areas, but I think we missed the mark just a little bit as far as conditioning is concerned. I feel like maybe I was a week off of
hair tighter.
Yeah, yep. And I've been getting a lot of questions did you get judges' feedback and what did they say? And yes, I did get judges' feedback and was kind of what we both thought.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely you. It was kind of exactly what you said, except for I guess the fullness part of it. But basically we got judges' feedback from a judge and said, yes, I needed to be a little bit harder and to work on the balance between upper and lower half of my body, which I completely agree.
Yeah, it's an ongoing struggle is getting that upper body balanced. Better this year than last year.
Oh yeah, definitely much better. Yeah. Definitely. I think my arms, definitely my upper body in general kind of deflated throughout the year. Yeah. I will say that. I did a lot of shows. I kind of dieted for a while.
That's the only downside to doing a lot of shows, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly
dieting. Dieted off the muscle, man.
Yeah, that's the benefit. So the benefit of doing a lot of shows is that you're staying lean all year, so you have a more predictable outcome. The downside to doing shows all year is that you're constantly in a caloric deficit, so it's harder to build muscle, and it's sometimes harder to keep muscle too. So yeah, I think that was the case. I think there's a couple of things we could have done differently. I'm curious if we would have flown in earlier, if it would have been a little harder, because you were harder, a day later, 2 days later when you got home?
I did feel like that, but that's hard to pinpoint why.
There's a couple of things, and I never want to give a reason or an excuse. I think every reason's an excuse, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't like that either. At the end of the day, it's why did I play seventh? Because that was the seventh best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there were some factors. There was the one, we flew in on Thursday. The show was on Saturday, so maybe that's a factor we've never really dealt with before, because usually we just drive from California to the Olympia, and this year we would have just drove 15 minutes if it was in Vegas. So that wouldn't have been a factor. And then another factor that we didn't take into account, was that you did start your period that day too.
Yes, I did.
Which we don't want to use that. I hate even saying reasons, but it's just weird that you were a little harder 2 days later after you were eating, what is going on? Do you have tampon glasses on? What did this even come from? That's the first I've actually seen one out of the box, but I just figured it's what it was. So if you guys listening, she just put on tampon eyeglasses. What's the point of this? And a hello. Oh, that's it. Is that a tampon too? Oh, it's a maxi pad. You're so crazy. You're prepared for this. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I just feel like this is the right thing to do. This feels right. I can't explain it.
Oh my gosh, this is pure craziness. But I don't even know. I have no words right now.
Just so you guys know, though, I just will put it out there because I know someone will say, you're wasting tampons and there's people over the world that don't have them. I will use them, I promise.
That's so funny. People are crazy.
People say that.
So yeah, that was another factor too, which was weird. And it's crazy that you're so lean and you still get it, because everyone's always saying,
yes,
you don't get your period when you're that lean. But
yeah,
you're that lean and you got it on the Olympia
oh
day.
yeah, and a lot of people, like from my YouTube video, right? They were like, they say, I compete, I'm not as lean as you, but I haven't had a period in a year. Or they were super surprised to see that I got my period. And actually, I've never missed a period. So I always have one. You know, it's a blessing and a curse. But I've never had my period like on the day of the show or right before. Like if I did have my period when I competed, it was like the last few days, which doesn't really make that much of a difference for me. So, I mean, I don't want to use that as an excuse, but it's definitely a new situation that I've never been in.
Yeah.
I will say that, just like you said, when I got home, I did feel leaner. I don't think I felt like full or anything. It didn't like, you know, I think a lot of people say, oh yeah, once I had that cheat meal, I really filled out. I didn't fill out anymore. I definitely tightened up though. I don't know, that could also be like in my mind that because the air is drier here. So maybe it's like a skin thing. I don't know. But
you know,
definitely wasn't my best.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to Paul about that at one point, because he asked me, he's like, hey, if anyone would know, maybe it would be you, that is, if the air at higher altitude and drier air, does it have something to do with girls like drying out and whatnot too? And so there was, he ran into that too, but in Florida, he's from Florida, so he gets it. But like when he was in Denver and in Vegas, he was asking me, he's like, you would probably know because the air is so dry there. So it was like, it is crazy. Because other people experience that same type of thing.
My digestion like really was on point too a few days after as well. Like my stomach felt so flat. It felt like, man, my waist was itty bitty. Could be, but you know what? I will say though, I think if I was like properly, like if I peaked even just a week earlier and then ran into a situation where I was like overly lean and that happened, that would have been a different story, but that wasn't the case. So definitely could have been a little bit leaner coming in. But with that being said, I think a lot, let me just take these off for a moment. Don't want to distract you guys. I think a lot if it kind of is like a mind game or something we were just trying, like, well, for me anyway, like almost, I don't want to get too lean because I've been, the one like negative critique I got this year was that I was too lean. And in fact, like every show,
twice, right? Twice,
so I was like too lean. So we don't want to be too lean, right? We want to be, I guess, like with the trends, you know, be what, like about the same.
I would say in the top 7 girls there, you were the 3rd leanest, I would say. I think Janet was the leanest. Janet was sharp as a rock. And then who would be second? Angelica, I would say, would be second leanest. And then I would say you'd be 3rd. And then after, I think that would be like in conditioning wise. But everyone has their different look. Like, like Laura Lee would never be allowed to be as lean as that.
That's a great point. Like because for me, I look better when I'm leaner. And you know, I think that one judge that said, oh, you're too hard, you're too lean at that one show, that the only show I didn't place first at throughout the season, well, besides the Olympia, was my critique was, oh, too lean, you're too lean. And in fact, I think are both in agreement. That was, in our opinion, the best look.
I
love that look. I was so proud of myself that day because I thought I never looked that good ever. So that was the one show that I didn't place first at, and that critique kind of stuck with me, like, oh, you're too lean. So in my mind, I was like, I don't want to get too lean. I don't want to get too lean. You know?
You know, and that's another thing about like judges' feedback. If you take it 100% to heart, then you're going to kind of always be chasing the next judge who just said something to you. And that's a problem that we run into a lot as coaches too. You know, where a judge will say something and then the client is like 100% like on board with what that judge said, but then they're going to do another show, and then the next show, a judge is going to say something different, and they're going to chase whatever that judge said. You know, and you got to look at like the judge's history too. So like that judge who said you were too lean, the next week gave a Olympia qualification to a girl who had full on quad separation and glute separation with the glute vein. And I was like, how is Ashley too lean when you just awarded someone who's figure lean Olympia qualification when Ashley was nowhere near that? You know what I mean? So like, if he's not even consistent as a judge in that parameter. So like, you have to look at the history too and not get so tied to it, because judges have to say something when you ask them, what do I fix? You know?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then going into like the conditioning too, you know, different girls have different conditioning, you know? So if you look at like, I would say Jennifer Dorian, you were probably pretty close in condition, but she has a really full look, like a very full look. Like, I feel like
she rocks it too.
She looks great. I think that like, she looks kind of like one of those girls where she gets really, really lean. And then at the last week, they just fill out like crazy. It's kind of like it looks, she always has that super full, super tight look. So I like her look too. And she came up second place. So good for her. You know, I'm friends with her. She's done really great. Done the work over the last few years for sure. Her and Mark and James. So, but yeah, as far as your conditioning goes, I think with what they were saying all year, I think that we were pretty close to maybe a pound off, and who knows where that.
I was really, missed it just a little bit.
Right there. And then the other thing too, this year they were telling you, actually for the last 3 years, they've been telling you, don't push your hamstrings, don't push your hamstrings, don't push your hamstrings, don't push your glutes. But it looks like everyone was pushing pretty hard.
Oh yeah, that's the ongoing frustration with me is knowing how much to push and when to push. I was always this year in particular, I was super cautious of pushing because, first off, I just want to clarify, when you push in your back pose means like you kind of put that little arch in your back and then you kind of use your, upper body and you sit upright, but you kind of lean more towards so you're more of it at an angle, I guess you could say, pushing your glutes or flexing your glutes, basically. And I was super cautious about that all year because I've been told so many times, you're pushing too hard. Although, in my opinion, I didn't think I was, but again, with everyone's physique, we're all kind of different. So I had to be very careful about pushing. And I didn't push that much in the last show, or I should say last show is Olympia, in the Olympia, because I was so afraid to get that critique again, because that stuck with me like, oh, you can't push. So I pretty much stood very much upright. And I think with that, the conditioning that I brought to Olympia, where I wasn't as lean as usual, I probably could have gotten away with a little bit of a push. Yeah. But it's like, you don't know until you're already on the stage, Yeah,
so. It's difficult to it's difficult because you don't even know how, especially in the back pose, you don't know how hard everyone's pushing. Yeah. Because you're facing the opposite direction. You can't even see. But yeah, everyone really went for it. They're pushing really hard. And I think that would be, definitely a trend that if that's going to be carried into the remainder of next year. They're pushing a lot harder. The glutes are a little fuller. Yeah. The tines are really showing. And even, I would say, there's not any hamstring separation. That's always been a thing that they don't want to see is hamstring separation, but a little bit more detail was kind of apparent in that. If you look at last year's top 5 and you look at like or I guess there's every girl on that initial first call out on last year, and you look at their hamstrings, none of them had any separation in detail, you included. And so this year, if you look at the top, what do they have this year? First call out?
6.
6. So look at the top 6. There's a pretty big difference of the detail of the hamstring and the glute tie-in versus last year. Yeah. Actually, I'd love to see like a side-by-side of that. Honestly, I'll probably post one up. But what they're looking at is, if you can see, there's a lot fuller glutes. Like I would say a pretty significant difference in the fullness of the glutes from last year to this year, and a little bit more in the hamstring detail too. Right. And I would say they're pushing a little bit harder now too.
Totally. Yes.
If you look at their physique, especially if you look at like Angelica's glutes this year versus last year, that type of thing. Janet too, Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, she made some great improvements. Really good improvements. I was very impressed by her. All the changes she made, they're very subtle, but I noticed them because I have that bikini eye. Yeah. But my highlight be popping. So I also wanted to put out there too, just to clarify, because I'm definitely not an excuse maker. I hate that. Even if I would have came in leaner, I don't know if that even would have changed my placing or not. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's really hard to tell. But it's kind of like, I would never know. But then again, seeing who I placed behind, I placed behind Issa.
Yeah,
like, you know,
that was the thing.
And it was really like the top girls in the top call out, I would have agreed 100% with that call out.
Yeah.
The first call out, I would have picked myself.
Yeah.
As far as the actual placings of the top 5 or top 6, maybe could have been switched maybe slightly. And I'm sure if you look at the scorecard, I didn't look at the scorecard. They're probably really close.
Yeah.
But I would have picked those 6 girls as top call out. And if I'm being honest with myself, I wouldn't have put myself in the first call out with this conditioning. If I would have came in a little bit leaner, maybe I could have snuck up into that first call out. I'm not sure. But I still would have dealt with the upper body issue, even if I was a little bit leaner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think with where your shoulders and upper body are in terms of development and balance versus everyone else, I think that we're probably shooting for like if we brought our best conditioning in that, somewhere in that 4th through 7th, 4th through 6th or whatever place, if we had just a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe would have snuck up.
Yeah,
but who's to say? I mean, it wouldn't have been obvious, so that's for sure.
Yeah,
I would have had a hard time struggling getting any higher than I was regardless.
But I think that now we, here's the one thing that's really, I would say, really hard about kind of putting you with those girls is we only get next to those girls like once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get lucky and get next to them twice. And it's not really obvious of what we need to work on until you're next to them.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, okay, she does need more upper body. Like it was literally, it was like right when you were there, I was like, oh, okay, she definitely needs a little bit more. Right. Yeah. And it's like, but the thing is, you're not competing against them all year because they don't compete.
I couldn't even do the Arnold.
Yeah.
Ooh, I had one chance to get next to him.
Yeah. And then you got to remember, like Issa competed. Did she even compete at the Arnold? No. Right?
She did compete at the Arnold.
Yeah. And then so you had Issa competed twice, the Arnold and the Olympia. Angelica competed 3 times at Arnold, 1 week before the Olympia and then the Olympia. Janet competed 1 other time.
She might have. I don't know if she did Arnold Australia or not. She did win the Arnold though, correct?
Yeah, I think just the Arnold, and then I think it was just the Arnold. I don't know. Okay. Maybe she did Arnold Australia.
I'm not.
But like, sure. It's just, you don't get to get next to them very often because they're not competing very often. Laura Lee competed at 1 show. I think this is Laura Lee's first show in like 15 months because she did the Olympia and then she did the Yamamoto Pro.
Oh,
like 2 weeks after the Olympia, and then she hasn't competed since then. So yeah, so it's like getting next to everyone when you're trying to like compare apples to apples. Like you're just looking at pictures and stuff, and you're trying to get, and it's like it's really hard. But now I think we saw the differences. We know what we need to work on. And I think it's pretty easy what we need to do for next year, like you know, in terms of, executing is going to be hard, but what we need to do is just a little bit more for body
clear, yes.
Yeah. And I think that if we bring back similar to your Arnold fullness of a couple years ago, where your shoulders were that muscular, that we'd be pretty close there. And the clash shoulders were pretty close
the clash shoulders. Yes.
That's we're pushing it there, and a couple of judges even said so. So I was like, but I think at this Olympia that we just needed to do that. Yeah. So I think next year we have a real good shot. We bring that fullness, and we just say, screw it, that's what we're going to bring. Yeah. You know, push a little harder.
Totally.
And then I think we got a chance at the top 3 with that type of look. You know, for sure. So.
You never know. I will say, something. This year, definitely by far the most difficult year from looking. Like I just don't see any weak links at all in the top. There's nobody in the top like call out that I would have said like, oh, that's a weird one. I don't understand how she's there. Like I wouldn't know. They're all deserving of the top call out. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the first show that I've never gotten first call out. Believe it or not. I know, crazy, right? As a pro, I've never gotten second call out except for this show. But if I'm going to take second call out, I understand to these girls. Okay. Understandable. Yeah. Totally understandable. They're amazing. And like everyone was so on point. They gave 100%. Like there was no weird placings. I mean, I think like as I'm a competitor, right? I try to look at it objectively. Yeah, that's exactly how I would have had it. Maybe switch a few in the top, just even swapping, but nobody that I would kind of place ahead of them, if that makes sense. Maybe in the top 10, I might have swapped out some for like maybe like some of the newer competitors or some girls that maybe you didn't even see in that top call out, maybe. But as far as the top call out, that was on point, very much so on point.
It was good. And Yeah, so let's go into it. So with, it's kind of crazy because I don't think there's ever been a year, and I don't think there's ever been a year in any division that I've seen that I can remember where the reigning champion didn't place top 5, like didn't medal, right? Is that, I'm trying to think of like bodybuilding, I'm trying to think of all divisions, and I don't think it's ever happened. I've seen people like go down a few slots, but I've never seen that happen. So man, and that must be a hard one. And I love, Issa's so nice and so sweet too. So she must have taken that. She's so
I'm a
nice.
fan of her.
Yeah.
I'm like always rooting for her. She's just I don't even know her that personally. I just know her just from a few words backstage and stuff, but I just love her look when she's not so on point. Like I love that. Yeah. She was my favorite for a long, long time. Even before she like won the Olympia, she was like my favorite.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, like she was your favorite. And then, and it was funny, I remember like, it was a long time ago and you were like talking about this girl, Issa, and you were like sending pictures of her. And I was like, we'll see. I'm like, we'll see. Yeah, of course she looks good because she only competes in a small, there's smaller shows in Brazil. And at that point she hasn't came to the United States. I'm like, we'll see. She looks good in pictures, but you don't know until she's next to someone, just like we talked about with Ashley, not next to them. And then she put her next to pictures, next to people. I was like, dang, her waist is crazy. Her shoulders are crazy. That V-taper's nuts. She's pretty, like everything. But yeah, I think this is a good example too of like, we've talked about it before, is like I think it's important to always be trying new things and always be pushing yourself and always be pushing your physique and seeing what works for you. But once you get to that level of where you're winning, I don't think you need to make a lot of changes. I think, very, very slight improvements, but pretty much bring exactly what won you the next year is what needs to happen. And I think that she just pushed her muscle just too much. I saw her at the Meet the Athletes meeting, and I just thought, man, she looks really muscular. Like she looks really jacked right now. And that was like 3 days before the show. And I was like, well, she's probably going to come down, because that's something I do see with her peak weeks. I don't know what they do with her peak weeks, but she always like comes down a lot during peak weeks. I don't know if they have to like flatten her out, and maybe this time it didn't happen. I don't know if it's like a water protocol or something where she just is less full, like coming into the show, and she's just smaller. But that always seems to be the case with her, like Monday, Tuesday until Saturday. Like specifically in her legs, I always see her legs come down on Saturday to being like that streamlined look. And a couple of times I've seen it where they're a little bigger. Like if you look at the Arnold of the year she won the Olympia, her legs were a little bigger, and then she really nailed it at the Olympia. So I don't know if she has like a hard peak week where it kind of fluctuates a little bit. I don't know. And that's why and I always talk about this, my peak weeks are never going to be crazy. I'll never have crazy peak weeks. All I'm going to have is one girl will have a little bit more carbs, one girl will have a little less carbs. Like it's not going to be these crazy manipulations of all these different things. I'm not saying she does that, but what I am saying is that predictable peak week is the most important thing. And so I'd rather take out all the variables of all this craziness and just give someone a little more carbs, a little less carbs, a little bit more fats, a little less fats. And that's basically your peak week. Like your peak week is pretty much like the same as like my amateurs peak weeks, where it's just, okay, you get whatever, 80 carbs twice and you get 500 carbs twice. Like it's just like person per person, but we're not doing all these crazy things. So it's predictable at the end. And maybe that would be the next evolution for her, is getting more like consistent with peak week. I don't know, but she just looked bigger than she ever has. Maybe it was just, she just put on more size period throughout the year, but she was just a little bit more muscular, I think, than the division that they wanted in the division, I think is what happened. So, and that's good that they put a cap on it too. They're like, hey, you know what? I know you're the champ, but we don't want this division getting out of control. We don't want that much muscle in the division. And I think that's what I'm actually glad that they did that. I'm not glad for Issa, but I'm glad that they said, okay, this is enough muscle, guys. Like you guys are getting too big, because if she would have won like that, then every girl would be getting jacked next year. Every girl would be like, well, that's the standard,
Right.
So
yeah. But something in that top call out, what I did find to be very interesting, and it's also great. I think it's a wonderful thing. Within that top call out, there was so many different body types.
Totally.
And I think that's great. And it's very encouraging for girls, because there isn't just this one type of body that's thriving, right? We have Janet, who's, in my opinion, like if you were to say like bikini fitness model, that's the body that comes to mind. She's tall, she's curvy, she's got a little bit of muscle, but not too much. That, I don't know, she just has that bikini
that's
model
what I think too.
Fitness look. Like if you were to say bikini fitness model, That's the body and the face that comes to my mind. And then you have Jennifer, who's like that curvy, more curvy, full look, you know? And then I believe the third was Angelica.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, Itala.
Oh, I should know this. We should know this.
Itala.
Okay, Itala. Yes, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. She is so gorgeous. And I love her hair. I mean, I also like Jenna's hair too. Like, they have great hair. Sorry, I'm just talking about their hairs. No, I mean, she's another one too that I'm like thinking, okay, bikini fitness model. Yeah, that's that type. Angelica, you know, she's, I guess, I would say she brought a little more athletic look than the others.
Sharp.
She was very sharp. She's more like that athletic body type, which I guess I would kind of say I fall into that category. We're built quite differently, but I fall into that category.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, and then,
and Laura
Lee, yes. Yeah. She's more of that softer, curvy. She's one that can really pull off a softer look. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, that's what
I wish I could pull off looking that good and being softer.
She's really hard to peak week, I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's and I think that's going to be when they nail that, that's going to be the thing with her. Cause she could lose like 4 pounds in a night, like 5 pounds in a night. It's something happens that last week with her. That last like couple days, maybe it's her mind or her body just burns so many calories period that she just like just depletes like crazy. Right. And I think that, you know, they're trying to figure that out over there at that camp because that's just something I know her very well, me and her talk all the time. I worked with her once and she like over the course of a night, like if you're just like, oh, just have your food and go get some rest. She wakes up and she's like a different person.
Right.
Yeah. And you're catching up is just so hard with her, like catching up. She's one of the few people where you're like, I'm like, oh, just eat your carbs. She's one of the few people that burns through them like a fire. And so like, she's a difficult one because they want her to be soft too. They don't want her to be hard and she can turn on you like that. Like her body can just turn on you like that. So I think that you'll see her like, I think she's going to always have a little bit of fluctuation in her physique, but once they nail it, like, it's going to be like, she'll win, you know, it's going to be like, oh, they nailed it. You know what I mean? But it is one of those things, you almost have to like sleep next to her. like you just wake up like every couple hours, like, all right, what do you look like now? Like it's a hard one.
Dang.
Yeah. She's crazy how many calories she just can eat. She can just eat.
She's got a crazy structure as well. She has very wide shoulders, small waist, wide hips.
Yeah.
So she's another one too, that's like, she's taller, a little softer, curvy, very curvy, and that's great, like genetic structure for it.
Her balance could be, and I talked to her a little bit too, and like her balance could be just a hair better this year too. You know, her glutes, I think, are just a little bit overpowering to her upper body. I feel like her conditioning was pretty good for what they want from her, you know?
Yeah.
Like the problem is they do want her softer. She's giving them the hard look and they don't like it on her. So like her being a little bit softer that's her look. You know,
that's why we're quite opposite. I'm very much opposite of her. They want me leaner, harder, because I pop more and I just pull off athletic, where she pulls off more of that soft curvy look. So
super
just
full
goes to show
muscles
you.
though. And then like you look at like Janet was shredded, man. She was diced. Yeah. Janet, was that the leanest we've seen Janet? I think maybe Korea, she was pretty like that, close to that lean too. But man, she was diced.
But she, you know what? She can get lean without getting like all grainy looking. You know what I'm saying?
Muscle.
She's got pretty muscles, so she can get lean and not get like all striated and veiny, you know? So she can definitely pull that off. But I just want to put this out there too for Janet. You know what improvement I really saw is that front pose. She improved it so much, so much. Like I feel like that her front pose is just as good as her back now. Whereas I feel like in past, like her straight on back was, you know, over, like it took priority of the front, but yeah. So, And also number 6 was Issa. So Issa is, I guess we could describe her as like more like she's got some crazy genetics. Like she is probably the most genetically gifted as far as structure is concerned, I would say, just because her waist to hip to shoulder ratio is crazy. She's like X-framed.
She's a structural anomaly.
So she's like the structure genetics girl, I would say, out of the group. And I just think she's so freaking cute too. She's so adorable. So that was like the top 6. And then of course I'm number 7. So I was in that second call up, but I mean, good mix of girls. And as you can see, different body types are just thriving in sport bikini. So just goes to show you got to work with what you got. There isn't any body type that's like, you know.
I think it's great for everyone.
Yeah,
though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so you can be athletic, you can be like that lanky, tall, you can, you know, just work with what you got.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's good to see too, especially when you have like someone like Issa who won it last year. Like, it's funny because we did a posing seminar in Japan with Issa, and when she walked in, she was also wearing like a waist trainer too. So her waist looked like it was 10 inches big. Like her waist looked just stupid. And then she had a crop top, so it made her waist look even smaller.
Yeah.
And then she's got wide shoulders. She's got wide shoulders for her little waist. And she walked in and like everyone shut up. Everyone was like, what? How does she look like that? You know,
like,
everyone like
walking Photoshop.
It was crazy. And everyone's like, and then this Japanese girl's like, I don't think I could look like that. I'm like, no one could look like that.
Yeah.
That's just her. Like, it's just crazy how she looks.
And I just went, and just look at how fickle it is. Like you're just a little bit off, like, you know, you can go from being first to like, you know, being sixth. Yeah. It's crazy. But you know, I will always be a fan, and I think she's stunning no matter what.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to like control the muscle for the next year than it is to like build a whole bunch and try to say, okay, this is now my Olympia look. Like, it's a hard thing to jump in one of those big shows with making changes. You know, that's kind of one of the things I've learned too as a coach. Like, if you have someone, you want to do like smaller shows, like not smaller, but just don't do the big show, you know, as your first, hey, this is my new look, and like get some feedback from it too. So that way you have time to go into those, time to go into that big one and make some changes. But I think next year you'll see her go back up.
Yeah.
You know, I think she'll go back in the top 3 or something next year. She'll just not come as, you know, as full muscularly. She was pretty jacked, you know. I like the look, but it is pretty muscular. You know, it's pretty jacked. For her, especially when you have someone as small and petite as her, when she puts on muscle, it looks like a lot more muscle than like if someone who had like big bones put on the same amount of muscle, you know? So but I expect to see some changes from her. She's such a warrior that there's no way she's not going to be
she's very determined.
Correcting what she did. She'll probably be competing a lot this year, I bet.
Oh, I'm sure she's probably like, okay, got to do this to fix everything. Like, I'm that same way. Like, if I need to fix something, I'm like, dang it, you know, I want to fix it. Yeah. And I'm going to do it over and over until I get it perfect. But congratulations to all the girls who placed top. And that's incredible. I've never competed with such a competitive lineup where like somebody's just slightly off or makes a slightly bit. They could have switched places with anybody, but wow, that was crazy. Congrats to the girls. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I think if you would have shown up in the shape that you were in there at pretty much any other show, you probably would have won it. You know, like that was how, like the shape that you were at the Olympia.
Oh, yeah.
To like any other show, you probably would have won it. You know, it's like, that's literally how perfect you have to be that day. Like the 1 pound maybe off would have been, you know, winning a show or 7th at a show type of thing. So like, it's pretty crazy like how on point that day is, but it's pretty fun to like have to nail it type of thing too.
And that's why I get so nervous, that pressure, man. You're just like a little
and that makes it harder, you know, because the pressure is there. So it actually makes it harder to peak. So, and I think when we talk about like Laura Lee, how she burns through calories so much, you know, I think that's definitely a factor. Like when you get closer and closer and your mind starts working more and more. There's actually this, which this is crazy. They tested people who were playing chess. They tested how many calories they burn. And during a 2-hour chess match, a guy burned, I know it's over 500 calories. I think it was 570 something. It might've been 520 something. I thought it was 570 something calories in a 2-hour chess match. Just playing chess.
I thought it was the opposite sometimes though. You get the cortisol, which makes you hang on to like.
Well, they're both, right? Both. Well, one's burning calories, one's like maybe storing fluids and stuff like water retention or whatever, right? And so like, so I think when people's like minds start going, that's a factor too, right? Yeah. And you never know like what they're, like you can't control that, right? You can't tell your athlete, okay, don't think about the Olympics. It doesn't matter, they're gonna think about it. I used to have a girl that I worked with who she'd look awesome going into the show, every show, pro show. And then something would happen like the day before the show every single time. And we tried so many different things to get her to look just how she looked on Thursday. Like, okay, well, if you look like this on Thursday, let's just start everything one day later. That's a very simple solution, right? Okay, well then we just start one day later. Okay, another one day later. Okay, let's try this. But it was her mind. And like the next day, every time she'd be like, her glute tie-ins would disappear, her abs would get fluffy. And it was like, we've done everything right based on data. Yeah. But it was just something in the mind and we just couldn't get her right. And it's just, for her, I think it's just going to be getting comfortable and getting like more like, oh, this is just normal. This is like a normal thing for me, you know, and who knows if that's a factor, or maybe you just got to like overfeed someone who's like thinking like that just burns so many calories, like a Laura Lee or something. But yeah, but she's definitely difficult those last couple of days more than anything, you know, because you can have her perfect on Wednesday and then she can just burn through calories like Thursday through Friday. Like,
wish that happened to me, bro.
So that's a tough one, but I think they'll nail it. James is great, you know, and I think that they'll nail it. And I think that she's got, you know, a couple, I do see her one day winning it, you know, when they, I think one day she'll just surprise everyone and be like, oh my gosh, they nailed it.
Oh yeah.
And we'll like see it come out right when she comes out. We'll be like,
the top is like always rotating. You see that, right? Like it's just like, you know, they have a really good show, whatever, and then a maybe not so good show and a really good, they're just rotating. That top is like constantly in rotation. So she's in the mix. Like she'll be great, I'm sure. Like next year, she's definitely got a great year coming towards. I mean, this was a good year too. You can't complain about that. I mean,
top 5
it's all perspective, right? You know, I guess you could complain if you wanted to, but you know, for me, I try not to complain. It's just like, I just got to look at the bigger picture and just realize I'm in a position that very few people will ever be in, and a lot of people dream of being in.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why I like to not so much focus on the placement, but yeah, it definitely, it's like one of those weird things, because after the fact, you'll definitely get it talked about, like people try to bring it up with you and stuff like that. I mean, I'm definitely not afraid to say that I was 7th, and that's still pretty good in the world. 7th in the world, take it. The heck
with 44 girls, right? 44 girls. Yeah. That's crazy town. 44 people. That's it's such a long time to like get the show going for Bikini. Yeah, it's funny. I was like shooting video, and I was like, I was sitting next to Joe from Project AD, and we were like, I'm like, oh, what do we say? It was funny. It was like, we've all celebrated our birthdays. It's 2021, and now the judging will start. Because like the posing routines take like an hour and a half with like 44 people. Like there's so many people in the Olympia, you know?
Right.
But like they've all qualified. They've all won a show to get there. So it's 44 of the best people in the world. Like trying to find number 1 is so.
Right.
I don't know how the judges do it, because like. Man, that seems tough. Really, because when you guys come out to comparisons, it's pretty quick. You know, you have an hour and a half of individual posing, and then you have like the comparison lineups, like whatever group you're in, and then they got it right there's first call out. And I'm like, even that like just seems like so hard. How do you do that? Like there almost should be, I feel like there almost should be like a fake first call out, like let's just get a bunch of girls together and let's just analyze this closer, and then let's do a first call out.
Isn't that what they do for us though?
Well, they do the comparison, but the thing is the comparison lineup is very kind of dictated by luck, you know, because like,
if you're in the middle or on the side,
if you're so the initial comparison, like let's say you just happen to be in the line and your last name or however they organize it, and you happen to be with the bottom 10 girls, of course you look better next to the bottom 10 girls. But if you come out and you just happen to be in a lineup with Janet, Angelica, Laura Lee, and Jennifer, like you're pretty screwed if you're trying to break through that day, because you're not going to get as looked at. And that's just the way it is. That's just human nature. Of course, you're going to look at the names you know, the people who've been winning, the people you expect. Like, so there's kind of like a little bit of a luck of the draw of that initial comparison, because you just come out in these groups. I think that you should get like, I don't know, that in that show, only in that show, I think that you should do like, scatter up the comparisons more before the first call out, because man, those girls are so good. All of them are so good. How do you just see like 4 comparisons? Because I think it's what it is. It's what is there, like 8? So maybe 5 comparisons. There's like 8 girls on a line or something. And then you're just like, okay, here's your top 5. I found it. I'm like, how did you do that? You know, because this seems so hard.
It's like, you got to be noticed. Like you got to definitely be noticed, and then your presentation you do, and then. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And
from what I'm told is that the presentation is kind of how they confirm that they're right with their sting. Okay. But it just seems like, for me, I'm like, I just don't get it with that good of a group of women, because there's so many good ones that it just seems like
it is tough. Man. My goodness. And even like I mentioned, there are some girls that I saw that I don't want to say they got overlooked, but I'm saying like I would maybe switch some in the top 10. For sure. Yeah. Like they could have crept up into there, and I don't know, it's just how it is. And maybe there was something that they didn't like about that competitor or a pose or part of their presentation. You'll never know. Yeah. But it's very close, guys. I'm telling you, super close.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's just like, oof. That's why I get so nervous, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it just, nothing's really set in stone, and you got to be so on it and just, yeah, hope for the best. But yeah, I mean, gosh, great memories though. And I never want to look back and ruin my good memories with like, oh, but I was salty because I didn't get first call. Like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want that to taint my good memories. Yeah. So all in all,
first call outs could vary a lot. So, because last year, first call was 8 girls too. So like,
I mean, yeah, it was 8. Yeah. Yeah. So, I will say, like, the most nerve-wracking part of that entire Olympia experience is that first call. When they're counting your names, they count it in not alphabetical, in numerical order. And then it's like, once you realize you're not in that first call, it's like,
if you're getting, I just think,
and then it's like a shock, and then you're like, okay, you know.
If you're getting top 10 at the Olympia, you're super, super legit. You know what I mean? That's
super
just,
legit.
that's all that.
Super legit.
I mean, I was happy to see Brina getting there too. Brina got 10th there. That was cool.
Yeah, she's a good competitor, let me tell you. And I love her attitude. I love her attitude.
She's a genuine person.
Yeah, and she's not afraid. No. And she's not a complainer. I hate seeing that. I hate the complaints, hate the excuses. That's not her. She's like a real athlete. Yeah. That's what I would describe. Real freaking athlete. Yeah, like, bring it on kind of girl.
That's exactly
so, Brianna, you got, it's a high ranking in my book. You know?
Yeah, I would say she's one of my, I would say out of like all the athletes that I know of, and I know that I'm friends with, she's one of the ones that I just think is like such a gamer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, she's like, exactly like you said, like, probably played sports her whole life because she's got the right attitude, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, okay, come bring that shit, you know? But like, I'm still going to be super nice and friendly.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring my best.
Great sportsmanship.
And she's going to hug you and this and that, but she's there to compete.
Yeah, she's got great energy.
But she wants the competition, you know? Yes, she doesn't not afraid of it. Like, if your name's on a list, she's not going to dodge it, you know, type of person.
That's what's up.
Yeah, no, it's totally what's up, man. She's legit. And then she's like genuine. I don't know. I just really like her. She's got a good vibe, you know? So
the good times, my gosh, this week was good times, you know? There's a lot of great memories. And also, I got to tell you guys as well, there's something that now I can laugh at it, but in the moment, I was not laughing at all.
Oh, yeah.
All right. You guys know from listening to this podcast that I get nightmares, right? Leading up to the show, whether it be that I eat a cake the night before a show, or that, oops, I forgot to train for the show, I forgot to prep, oops, I forgot to tan, forgot my bikinis, forgot my heels, and then I always get the, oh, I'm late nightmare. Well, that one almost came true. And I was freaking out. So what had happened was, so at the night show, right, it says finals start at 7. They told us at the athlete meeting, finals start at 7. On the sheet, finals start at 7.
Yeah.
So bikini girls are third on that list. It's men's open bodybuilding, correct? I believe men's physique, and then bikini. So the plan was leave at 7:30 because for finals, you know, it's like they're going to take their time and, you know, all the routines and everything, especially with the men's bodybuilding, that's quite a bit of time. So yeah, all the bikini girls was like, okay, yeah, let's, a lot of bikini girls were going to go down at 9. I want to go down at 7:30. I thought that was a pretty accurate and give me plenty of time to, you know, get ready to go on stage for finals. And wow, I guess that wasn't the case because apparently they switched the orders and they never told us. Yeah. And I was not the only one to freak out either. And I was really distraught by this because what they did was something I've never seen before. For finals, they did the comparison round first and then, or confirmation, I should say, confirmation round, and then our presentation. So the confirmation round is kind of like the call outs, but confirmation means it's like the same call outs. So I was in that second call out. So they did like first call out, second call out, blah, blah, blah. But they only did top 10 of us. So that was something new too. A whole bunch of the open girls, they all showed up, hair ready to go. They didn't go on at all for finals. Not once, which I've never seen that before either. I thought, well, any Olympia I've ever been in, everyone got a chance for finals just to even walk across the stage, get introduced, and then go backstage. So they all had to go home. And like they were already like ready and tan, probably got a touch-up tan, touch-up makeup, touch-up hair, everything. And they just left. But for the top 10, they had us do confirmation rounds. first, before anything, which was not mentioned anywhere.
Yeah. So we got there at 7:30, what?
7:30. Yeah. And I was thinking, I'm going to be so early. And I'm getting rushed backstage. Like, are you beginning? You need to be backstage now.
Yeah.
And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, what?
Yeah. We got there and the guy's like, they're starting with women. So you want to hurry. We're like, what are you talking about starting with like women? I was like, women, like maybe they don't mean bikini.
Yeah.
Like, but then I was like, oh crap. Luckily the show started late.
Yeah.
The show started at 7. You'd have missed it.
And I'm telling you, it's frustrating because
You're not that person, yeah.
I'm the person that's there super early. That's my plan. I was gonna be like one of the first people there. I was gonna be super early, and I'm very attentive, especially like during the meetings and like aware. Like I'm paying attention. Like I'm not just on my phone at meeting. I'm paying attention to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
They didn't say that at the meeting at all. They didn't. But the other girls backstage were in that same situation. There was girls that arrived later than me, and I thought I was going to miss. Like, I didn't even get a chance to brush my hair or look in the mirror or pump up or anything. Just rushed backstage for confirmation rounds. And I was just like asking the other girls, I'm like, how did you know to even, because some of the girls did arrive before me. No one arrived there on time, that's for sure. But then they said that their coach heard from someone, I'm not sure, that they're starting with the women first. And that's how they found out. And then they told their teammates and their friends, blah, blah, blah. But it kind of like trickled down, if that makes sense. So I didn't hear about it until I got there.
Yeah.
And I was just so frazzled. I was like stressing out so bad. I'm like freaking out. I'm backstage. I'm like, oh my God, my shoe. I had another girl, Hannah, Franz. Yeah, sorry. She was like helping me put my shoe on.
She's super sweet. Yeah.
I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, no one told me. And so I was like, I had my tie shoe. I didn't have the slip-on shoe. I had tie shoe. And I'm like, help me put my shoe on. And I was like, see, this is where that practice running in heels came into play. Once I was running backstage. Yeah. And I was freaking out. And once we were backstage, it was more calm. We actually just stood there for like 20 minutes. But it was like, wait a second. So I am not sure what that was all about.
Yeah, that was your nightmare come true.
But that was a nightmare that came true. I guess be prepared for anything.
Thanks for Hannah.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. That was very nice of you to put my shoe on. So the sprint. But I was freaking out. I don't know what that was about. Hopefully it never happens again. But I was apparently somehow out of the loop in some way. I'm not sure how. But yeah, that was an interesting little thing right there. Almost came true, one of my nightmares, but I'm glad it didn't, because I would have been like traumatized. I would have like been crying. So.
Yeah. What's funny, that's a crappy situation.
Yeah.
And the coaches who knew, they're like, oh, they didn't tell you? I was like, no. I was like, oh, I thought everyone knew. Like, so they didn't know even to tell anyone if they ran into them in the lobby.
Yeah.
So because they would have, James or Cam or whatever, they would have been like, hey, just so you know. But like everyone just thought everyone knew too. So like unless you ran into someone.
Yeah, some people were left out of the loop.
Yeah.
Like me.
And they just thought everyone knew, like it was getting to everyone, but nope, no one knew.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have, you see, that's how and it was weird, the setup, because we did the bikini confirmation round and then we did the men's, like in between that, they did their whole thing and awards and everything. And then we just picked up kind of after them and did our individuals, and then so that was strange. Yeah, so that was very strange.
Well, an experience nonetheless. Now we know. Now we're gonna be like at 6:30 every time.
We would be asking everyone around us too.
Yeah, at 6:30. I'll text Tamer or whoever.
We'll be like camping out backstage for 3 hours, but whatever.
So that was it. So the Olympia. So I think next year, what girls need to be looking at next year, you look at Janet. That's going to be the gold standard for what you kind of look like next year. And those those top girls, that's going to be kind of the standard, the fullness, the conditioning, the different body types and what to bring. And you'll see there's a lot of variance in it. I think that the glutes were a lot more developed this year over prior years. And then one of the things that with Janet that you're having, a lot of the girls this year really got into opening up the lats. We talked about it for the last 2 years, like opening up. And a lot of that had to do with like Issa's V-taper and being the scenario. But if you look at Janet, she doesn't have a big lat spread. She's not opening up that crazy. So I don't think that that's going to be as an important factor. And Tamer said that too. He said he wanted to calm down on that a little bit, on the girls opening up so much on that back pose and on that front pose too. So for a lot of you girls who can't open up so much, I don't think it's going to be as big of a requirement going into next year. But will that be the case? We'll see as the shows go on, because sometimes things are said and then they're not, then the sport just keeps evolving. And so, so we'll see how that is. But I would say the number one factor this year is balance from upper to lower body, from front to back. Number two is going to be overall fullness. And then three would be conditioning. And of course, all the other things, beauty, all that stuff, hair, makeup, tan, that's always going to be, that never changes. That's always going to be just as important. But those two things, so balance first, fullness, then conditioning, and then maybe not so much craziness with the lats. The glutes are super full. There's a little bit more detail now than there was in prior years. The posing routines are, in that initial group, those posing routines, they're slow. They're, they push it, they're pushing those longer posing routines, minute 10 seconds, minute 20 seconds. They're sexy posing routines. They're, it's definitely evolved quite a bit. I think that would be a consistent factor in that upper group, is that posing routine and how their posing routines are so methodical, slow, sexy type of posing. So
absolutely. Yes. I mean, goodness gracious. It's like,
can walk.
They sure can. I definitely slowed down mine this year. And let me just say this to you, in comparison to last year, it is so much easier to do a routine without double vision. Because last year, as you guys know, on the Olympia stage, I had double vision so bad. I had to get surgery for it at the beginning of this year. That's why I missed the Arnold. But wow, that made such a big difference.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's like, really kind of hard to tell this year, because I had to deal with small crowds because of the COVID regulations. But this was the first time with a big crowd. Like, it definitely makes a difference, like looking way out into the audience and not having that dizziness kind of feel. And my depth perception was so much better. So always can improve on the presentation for sure. But in comparison to last year, a lot better. Happy about that. And I'm really excited about 2021 and all the improvements to make and all the shows we're going to do and all that good stuff.
So we're going to go on a run.
Oh, we're going to go on a run.
You're healthy, your eyes good, your body looks good.
Let's make a man.
You're in the zone, and she wants to work more on her balance, get a little bit bigger, which kind of goes against what we said earlier, which is like, the more you compete, the harder it is. But we'll find a way to hopefully just put more, work. Yeah, we're going to put more emphasis on those. And dude's just trying to get in the camera here. And
it's because I'm a cat. Duh. He's trying to attack me.
And so I'm excited for it. So that's basically it, the recap. But good year, definitely, considering all things considered. I'm glad you got to even compete.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, I guess that's pretty much. Is that pretty much it? Any final words for?
Bring on 2021. Yeah.
It can't be worse. It can't be worse. That's for sure.
And thank you guys all so much for the support and the love. We love you guys, and happy holidays. Until next time, we will see you all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.